Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, good evening. We are back together for one bonus shiur that we were not planning for last week, but Baruch Hashem, we get to have one this week. Thank you so much for making it back to learn Torah with me, and I hope that your preparations for the new year are all coming on well, B'ezrat Hashem. We are at the bottom of page 212. So if you see the PDF, I don't know what number it is in the PDF itself, but 212 in the actual page numbers of the book that I copied for you. You see it? All right. Rabbi Herzog was talking to us about the fledgling state of Israel and the conversations that were happening in Israel at the time about how to make Israel a Jewish state. Rabbi Herzog identified 5 or 6 different things last week, 5 that he felt needed to be addressed on a national level. And we focused on one of those 5 things, which was Mishpat Tzedek, or Mishpat HaTorah, having the laws of the Torah be the legal system of the modern state of Israel. And I told you that after Sukkot, we will spend a significant amount of time studying the writings of Rabbi HaLevi, dealing with all the questions that you have. How could such a thing work in a modern state, and all the challenges that come along with having a Torah country, Torah-abiding country as the legal system of a country. We're going to talk all about that after Sukkot. B'ezrat Hashem, for today, I want to focus on finishing this essay of Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Herzog, B'ezrat Hashem, the bottom of page 212. He mentioned just at the end of this, his friend Rabbi Yehuda Leib Fishman Maimon, and I mentioned to you a little bit about him last week. I want to start off today's shiur with a quote from the writings of Rabbi Fishman. He says the following in his small book on the dream of establishing a Sanhedrin in the state of Israel. מחשבתי על חידוש הסנהדרין נצנצה במוחי וחדרה אל ליבי בתורת החלטה. As one of the founders of the State of Israel and the active members in the Eastern European movement of Zionism, he said from the beginning, the thoughts of having a Sanhedrin were sparkling in his mind until he decided he was going to make it a reality. אחרי שבמשך עשרות בשנים התעמקתי במסכת חיי אומתנו בעבר ובהווה, I spent years of my life researching the history, the depth of our people. עברתי על כל הספרות שנכתבה בשאלת הסנהדרין. I went over all the books that had to do with talking about the Sanhedrin. And he came to the conclusion that we need a Sanhedrin. וצריך אני להודות, and I have to admit, כי מיום עומדי על דעתי, from the moment that I can remember myself, ומיום אשר צמחו כנפיים לדמיוני, and from the moment that my imagination was able to grow a pair of wings. חלום חלמתי, I dreamt a dream על תחייתה של הסנהדרין. I dreamed a dream of the refounding of the Sanhedrin. כשם שחלמתי על התחדשותה של מדינת ישראל, just like I dreamed for so long over the revival of the state of Israel. ושר החלומות וחזיונות לוחש באוזניי גם עכשיו, and the ministering angel of dreams and visions is whispering in my ear even now. כשם שהתגשם חלומך על המדינה העברית, just like your dream about a Hebrew state came true, שאותה זכית לראות בעיניך, which you merited to see with your own eyes, כן יבוא יום, the day will come, וחלומך על התחדשות הסנהדרין יקום ויהיה למציאות של ממש. And your dream of having a Sanhedrin will come true as well. And he says, לדאבוננו, to my, unfortunately, לא קמו החלומות והשאיפות של הדור ההוא. The dreams of that generation to have a Sanhedrin, they didn't really work out. ואם זכינו אנו בימינו לראות בפועל בהתחדשות מדינת ישראל, and if we merited in our generation to see the establishment of a state of Israel, בוודאי חובה מיוחדת עלינו לחדש גם את הסנהדרין. We also have an obligation to revive our Sanhedrin. רבים מן הרבנים, many of the rabbis, מורגל בפיהם לומר, it's usually what they say in their mouths, כי עדיין לא הוכשר הדור, the generation is not yet ready for a Sanhedrin. ורבים מבני הדור חוזרים ואומרים, and most of the people of our generation say, כי עדיין לא הוכשרו הרבנים, the rabbis aren't good enough yet to be sitting on a Sanhedrin. אבל כאלה כן אלה טועים הם, but I think they're both wrong. אם זכה דור זה לקומם מחדש מדינת ישראל, if this generation merited to establish again a state of Israel, מוכשר הוא ורבניו גם לחדש מוסד התורה העליון, this generation also merits them and its rabbis to establish the highest authority of law in the land, שהשתזר בכיסופי הדורות יחד עם חלום הגאולה, which was always interwoven with the dream of redemption in the Jewish people. אשרי מי שיזכה להניח את היסוד הסנהדרין המחודשת בימינו, and how praiseworthy is the person who will merit to revive the Sanhedrin in our generation. What happened to Rabbi Yehuda Maimon? He was considered a crazy person for talking about the Sanhedrin. His colleagues, his friends, rabbis, statesmen, they all thought that he lost his mind. And at some point in his book on the Sanhedrin, he says that I'm writing this from a small place out in the desert where I can think about the Sanhedrin on my own. Because for the most part, people think that those of us that talk about the revival of an ancient system of law of the Jewish people and the institutions that come along with it, doesn't always go over very well. And so I believe that's part of what Rabbi Herzog was alluding to when he discussed the work of his friend Rabbi Yehuda Maimon. Now I'm at the bottom of page 212, and he says the following. Ve'ata, so now, הנה אני חשבתי מחשבות מכבר להתכונן לקראת המפנה החדש. I've already thought of, so how do I deal with this opportunity, this challenge that is arising before us? וברוך השם הצלחתי לייסד כאן בתוך בניין המכון הרי פישל לדרישת התלמוד. Has anyone heard of Harry Fischel? Harry Fischel was a famous American businessman who was very involved in funding Jewish projects in Eretz Israel. Particularly, there's a yeshiva, there was a machon, an institution named after him, Machon Harry Fischel. It's quite elusive to me in terms of trying to figure out all the details of how this institution came into being, and I know it's written on the internet, but Harav Kook was involved in this institution at some point in time. Then other great Chachamim, some of the great rabbis of the generation studied there. Rabbi Yitzchak Nisim spent some time there. I believe Harav Kapach may have spent some time there, but don't hold me to that. At some point in time, it seems like the credibility of this institution in the Haredi community began to wane, whereas in the religious Zionist community it was then overshadowed by some other ones. But at this point in time, this was a major institution of Jewish learning that Rabbi Herzog was part of. And in this Machon Harry Fischel, he founded a Machon Mishpat Tzedek, an institute for Jewish national law. L'shem limud, biyun uveseder b'choshen hamishpat, uvedinei mamonot shebe'even ha'ezer. And he established a set curriculum for people to take an in-depth approach to the study of Jewish national law, especially financial law and the laws of Even HaEzer. במטרה להכין דיינים מומחים מטובי הכוחות הצעירים הבאים מהישיבות. And his whole dream was, let me harness the most promising minds that are coming out of the yeshivot, bring them to this institution, and teach them everything they would need to know in the realm of Jewish national law, especially in financial law, civil law, things that are relevant to a modern people in a modern state. ודאי שמחובת היהדות הדתית להתעניין בני טהרה החיוני הזה. It would make sense that the religious Jewish community would take interest in this project. And if you remember already from the page before, Rabbi Herzog is bewildered not at those in the state of Israel who otherwise didn't care for religion. Those people not wanting a religious state didn't bother him. But the religious people in the state of Israel not demanding that the law of the land be Torah law, he couldn't understand. בכוונה שיצמח ויפרח ברוך השם ולאילן הרב רבה יתאבד. He said, maybe we can nurture this little sapling and it will grow into a gigantic tree. על זה עוד ידובר אם ירצה השם. I'll speak more about this later. יתר על כך, in addition to this, כבר באותם הימים, already in those days, כשהרבה דימוש הרעיון על דבר יסוד מדינה יהודית, עצמאית, מלכותית, הרי זהו חזון שלא נתגשם לפני בוא משיח צדקנו. Already in the days where most people were thinking, or many people were thinking, that an establishment of a modern state of Israel would not be able to be accomplished before the coming of the Mashiach. I've been teaching in my Shabbat afternoon class here at Kehillat HaShamayim some of the writings of the early thinkers, religious thinkers, about the dream of a modern state of Israel. And you do see in the Jewish community two very different approaches to our redemption. These go as far back as Rav and Shemuel in the Talmud, who argued about this very same matter. Maybe even before, to the Mishnah, we find Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua arguing about this topic. Whether the redemption is something that we actively try to bring about and accomplish, or the redemption is something that we wait for. We wait for whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides for it to happen, it will happen, but until then there's nothing we can do. He says, even in the times where people were saying there's nothing to talk about establishing the state of Israel. The Mashiach will come when Mashiach comes. He says, already then I was working with those who believed that we could establish the state of Israel. שאפתי אני להקים תנועה אדירה. I was already yearning to create a movement שמטרתה תהא להשפיע על המועצה המחוקקת העתידה, which would have influence, some kind of a lobby that would influence the future legal institutions of the Jewish people. להכניס בתחוקה, קונסטיטוציה, that's also not Hebrew, to enter into the Israeli constitution, before you jump on me, סעיף יסודי, a foundational principle, or not an amendment, there's like a part of the constitution, שיקבע שהמשפט במדינה יהא משפט התורה, that would establish the Torah law as the law of the state of Israel. Now, does Israel have a constitution? No. Because Israel has a constitution, a lot of the conversation surrounding this particular question never ended up. Maybe the conversation was had, but the decisions weren't made because Israel has no constitution. But Rabbi Herzog said already then, when we were talking about establishing the state of Israel and who would be the ruling parties, and I wanted to make sure that there would be some influence of Talmidei Chachamim, of Jewish people who believed in their religion, who could talk to this ruling party and to the leaders of Jewish law in the state of Israel, that Torah law should be the foundation. Yadati hetev hetev, sheyistaer aleinu gal shel te'anot. And I know very well all of the complaints that people will have on me for suggesting or proposing such a thing. Shim na'amid hakol al shurat hadin kichtava, that if we try to restore Jewish law literally as it is written in the codes of law, nitakel b'kshayim atzumim, we will have tremendous problems in a modern state of Israel. Listen, he's going to tell you some of them. Bareka shel psulei dayanut ve'edut, on the top of page 213. We're going to have major problems attempting to reconcile Jewish halakha with the reality that would require most of the judges and the witnesses to recuse themselves because they are not kasher according to halakha. Can you give me an example of judges or witnesses that might not be kasher?
They don't have to be observant men over the age of bar mitzvah or the age of 20, something like that.
Okay, so you're talking about observant Jewish men over the age of bar mitzvah. Keep going. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you said all of them. Yeah, meaning, what about people who are not Jewish? What about people who are Jewish but not observant? What about people who are maybe Jewish and observant but not men? There's a whole list of people that are now going to be disqualified according to classic Jewish law from operating within the legal system of a modern state of Israel. And listen how he says it. Because the lack of religious rigor that some of the judges or witnesses may have. Maybe the law itself, like women testifying, then I began to search after all kinds of different solutions and maybe workarounds in the system. Uveodi me'ayen v'choker v'choter, and while I was busy trying to do all of this research, how can we create a modern system that could incorporate people that are Jewish but are not observant, or women and not just men, or Jews and non-Jews? I was working on all of that, says Rabbi Herzog. V'nei hamdina kvar kama. In the middle of my research, boom, the state of Israel was established. My research was cut short by the actual founding of the state of Israel. Now, כשאני רואה אותו היחס האדיש, when I see the indifferent attitude that is in the Jewish community surrounding this topic, רפו ידיי, my hands are weak already. הנה נופל בליבי ספק עצום. My heart has tremendous doubts in it, וזהו, these are the doubts. אפילו אם נצליח למצוא עצות. Let's say I, Chief Rabbi Herzog, I promise you to come up with solutions, to include women, to include people who are not observant of halakha, to include non-Jewish citizens of the state of Israel. I promise to come up with conclusions, workarounds. I'll do it. דרכים ותחבולות ולקבל הסכמת רוב גדולי התורה לכך. And if even I could tell you that I would manage to convince the majority of the giants of the Jewish people, the Torah scholars of the Jewish people, to agree with me that we can do this. האם יעלה בידינו להפעיל הכנסת אותו הסעיף היסודי לתוך החוקה? Will we actually be able? Let's say I get the halakha to work. I get the rabbis of the Jewish people to cooperate. But can I actually get the state of Israel to introduce this into law? V'im lav, and if I won't be able to? Kol HaTorah hazeh lama. Why am I working so hard? What's the purpose of working so hard? I'm going to come up with workarounds. I'll come up with a solution. But if my solutions won't even be accepted, maybe by the rabbis, but not by the people or the governing bodies of the state of Israel, so what's the point of working so hard? I remember seeing, maybe on a much smaller level, a similar type of yeush, a similar type of loss of hope. Rabbi Chaim Palaji. You heard of Rabbi Chaim Palaji? He was a rabbi in Turkey. He writes that his grandfather, if I'm not confusing the names, the Chikre Lev, I think I'm not confusing the names. His grandfather was once looking around the Jewish community and said, the Jewish prayers are so long. Shacharit, for example, is so long. There's so much going on in the Shacharit prayer. The Jewish people need an abridged siddur. They need an abbreviated prayer, something they can say faster with more kavanah. What's the point of praying for so long, saying so many paragraphs and mumbling so many pages if nobody has the proper intent to pray? And he came up with an abridged siddur. Before he published it, he said, but who's going to promise me that the Jewish people are actually going to have kavanah with a shorter siddur? If they're not actually going to have kavanah, they might as well say the whole thing without any kavanah anyway. So they're not praying with kavanah. Sometimes we see that we can create change. We can change things. We can reform things. We can think about how to rework the halachic system so that it works for the people. But if the people won't be willing to accept it, so what's the point? Just leave things the way they are. Shev ve'al ta'aseh adif. Maybe it's better just not to do things. Al ta'aseh. Don't do it. Afal pike. Nonetheless, uv'chol zot, and maybe even despite it, dati etana, it is my strong opinion, she'alenu la'asot et kol hadarush l'shem achanat shoftim reuyim ladun b'din Torah. That we have to do our part. And we must do everything we can to educate a next generation of rabbinic leadership that can handle this problem. B'chol hashetach shel dinei mamonot, for example, in all of the area of financial law, bli shum dochakim, bli shum etzot v'tachbulot, without any apologetics, set it up. Bikim b'dinei HaTorah al-buryam, to find people who are experts in rabbinic legal analysis. Yirei Elohim, God-fearing individuals. Anshe emed, people of truth. Anshe chayil, people of strength. Son'ei betza, people who hate money. Umeumanim, umchunachim, umushlamim, and people who are ready, are educated, are complete, למילוי התפקיד הקדוש והכבד ההוא. People who are able and willing to undertake this holy mission. So we need to create next level dayanim. That's what we need to create. What about for the rest of the judges? Now there's a state of Israel. There are judges in Yerushalayim, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in every major city. There are small courts, more local courts, supreme courts. How are we going to get all of those judges overnight to become experts in halakha? Make them go back to law school? Have a yeshiva curriculum for them? We're going to teach them now Tur and Bet Yosef, Rambam with the Kesef Mishneh. We're going to push some Ktsot HaChoshen, Pilpulim on them too. What do you want to do exactly with the members of the Tel Aviv Supreme Court? What do you want to do with them? Bedin HaShalom. What do you want to do with them? Bet Mishpat, they call themselves. Bet Mishpat HaShalom. What do you want to do? Yachad im zot, together with creating a generation of rabbinic scholars. Tzav hasha'ah chazak alenu la'achin me'en aruch hashulchan. We have a job to make some type of aruch hashulchan. You could say shulchan aruch, it doesn't matter. B'tzura asuya litkabel etzel hayuristim. We must write a legal code in the abridged, shorthand fashion, something that is accessible and that is palatable to those who are jurisprudists. Is that the word? Those who are the lawmakers. And I allow myself to say, let's be honest, it's not just for the secular judges in Tel Aviv. The rabbis need this too. There are some areas where we need some updating, some continued education. There are some areas of halakha that have changed as we've advanced or we've shifted our financial, the way that we work in the realm of finances and business and contract law. And there are some things that we need to make takanot, some updates we must make in the realm of halakha. And not only that, there's a reason that we need to write a code of law. We have to cut out all of the hard work when it comes to learning law, just to give people a very clear guide in understanding what is the Jewish law. They don't have to go to classic sources, analyze original codes, just what does the law say. There'll be double benefit from this. We will have benefit from it as rabbis. And also, the courts of the country will also have use for it. Let me explain to you what I'm saying, says Rabbi Herzog. And if we don't make some kind of otzar hamishpatim, some type of code of law, what are the jurists who are not really able to handle opening up a Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat with classic rabbinic commentaries on it? What are they going to do when they have to rule over a legal question? As a codex. That's not a Hebrew word either. They'll take some codex from the non-Jewish world. And then once again, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be desecrated. Among the Jews and the nations of the world. If we can prepare a book, we say we want a Jewish state of Israel, and we also wrote the code. We have it ready for you. Do you want it? We have it ready to be adopted. Then it's possible to assume that the judges will take a look at it, and they'll give preference to it over other books. And they'll take for themselves entire chapters or sections of this work, and so much more Jewish law will enter the canon of Israeli law. This is still very far away from our dream of Sanhedrins and a Jewish state of Israel. But we're not expecting only to have a few chapters of Jewish law enter the Jewish legal system. Nonetheless, אם התורה לא תחגור כולה שא, גם כן חוששי שתצא בת קול מהחורב, מחזת ואומרת, I'm afraid if we don't do this, a voice will come out from HaXorev. This is an allusion to a section of the Talmud, which says, אוי מעלבונה של תורה, woe to the desecration of the Torah, אך על כל פנים חילול השם לא יהיה כל כך גדול. But if I can ensure that at least some Jewish law makes its way into the Israeli legal system, at least the desecration of Hashem's name will not be so great. So here's Rabbi Herzog's solution. It's a two-pronged solution, and he's not done yet. The first is to create dayanim that are capable, they fulfill all of the requirements of the Rambam, God-fearing people, good people, people of truth, people who know the law. All of these people will be ready to go whenever people are ready to have a Jewish court system. And second, to create an abridged code of law for judges. So they don't have to rip apart old codes of halakha, go through tractates of Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Batara. They could just have a code of law so Jewish judges can incorporate as much Jewish law into the Israeli legal system as possible. And now, based on everything I've said, befirush uveremez, what I've said explicitly, and that which I've implied, I'm coming to an actual practical point. It's the responsibility of the religious community in Israel and in exile. It's our job to make sure that at least there's some little bit of grasp of Torah law in the state of Israel, in the land of the Torah. וזאת אומרת, and that means, לדעתי, in my opinion, שתהיה הזכות לכל יהודי הנתבע לדין בענייני ממונות, לאו דווקא ברקע של המצב האישי להשיב. Every Jewish person in the state of Israel, and he's talking specifically here about financial law, so let's run with it. Every Jewish citizen of the state of Israel should have the right to say, לבדין של התורה אני יורד. I'm on my way to the Torah bedin. Is anyone familiar with the Gemara that he's referring to? If somebody wants to summon by a local court, but he wants to go to a larger court, Sanhedrin, let's say, he's allowed to tell the bedin, listen, I know you summoned me, but I'm on my way to another court. Meaning, it should be the right of every citizen of the state of Israel to opt in to bedin. If you don't want to make bedin the system that all Israelis must live by, then at least those of us who want to go to a bedin, we should have the right to. By the way, like who else? Who else can do this in Israel? The Muslims can. The Muslims can do this, absolutely. So we want something similar. We want Jewish people to be able to say, listen, this is a dispute financially between us. I want to go to bedin. מובן שיקבע זמן שבתוכו עליו לענות הזמנתו של אותו הבדין. Of course, you must set rules, legal guidelines in place, so there's a limited amount of time in which you have to answer the summons to the bedin. ושאם לא יופיע, and if he doesn't show, שהכוח ביד בית הדין לדונו שלא בפניו. The בית הדין should reserve the right to judge a person without them being present. Meaning, you were summoned. You have 2 weeks to reply to the summons. If you don't, we'll judge you without your permission. Meaning, without your presence. מובן גם כן שיתקיים בדין גדול לערעורים של הרבנות הראשית בירושלים עיר הקודש תיבנה ותיכונן. And of course we have to have some higher court of appeals of the chief rabbinate in Jerusalem that can oversee or people can appeal to like any functional legal system in ירושלים. כמו כן מובן שנדרוש שפסקי הדין של בתי הדין של הרבנות. And of course we demand that the legal rulings of our courts לאחרי החלטת בית הדין הגדול של הרבנות הראשית לארץ ישראל, after they've been decided on by the Supreme Court of the Chief Rabbinate, לא יהיו נתונים לערעור לפני בית המשפט העליון הממשלתי. That the Israeli Supreme Court will not have the right to question the rulings of the rabbinic courts. שברובו הוא מורכב מאנשים, because the Israeli Supreme Court is made up mostly of people, I'm afraid with the current political climate. שבכל הכבוד והעיקר שאני רוחש להם בתור אישים מכובדים. With as much respect and honor and dignity that I give them as respectable members of Israeli society, אינם בשום פנים בעולם סוג של בקיאים באותו המקצוע בתורה שאין לך גדול ממנו. They're most definitely not experts in this great realm of halakha that requires a tremendous amount of knowledge that they don't have. How could the Supreme Court veto rulings of the rabbinic Supreme Court especially when they don't have the knowledge to be able to do that. Rabbi Herzog is demanding, even in Israel, some type of Jewish national autonomy for people who want it. On page 214, אני מניח גם כן, I'm putting here also, שברקע של המצב האישי, יישאר כוח השיפוט של בתי הדין התורניים אחרי ביטול הקיפוחים הנ"ל. Okay, this has to do with personal law, it doesn't matter. זוהי לדעתי הדרך להשארת שורש וענף למשפט תורתנו הקדושה, עד אשר יערה רוח ממרום ויקוים והשיבה שופטייך כבראשונה ויועצייך כבתחילה. If we're not founding a Sanhedrin, and we're not going to turn the state of Israel into a religious country, at the very least, here are the three things that I'm requesting. One, we internally, the Jewish community, those who care about halakha, should create a next generation of leadership, of rabbis, of Talmidei Chachamim, of Torah scholars, who will be able, when the time comes, to lead us forward in this matter. Two, we must work on creating a legal code that is tangible, it's palatable, it's accessible to modern lawmakers in a language they understand, in an organized fashion they know how to use, so that the Jewish law will be relevant, at least in some areas, and they'll be able to incorporate as much of it as they can into the Israeli legal system. And last but not least, that we, as religious citizens of the state of Israel, request, demand, that we be given the right in the modern state of Israel, the land of the Torah, to continue governing ourselves, at least in the areas the government will allow, according to the laws of Torah, by courts approved of by the chief rabbinate of the state of Israel, which have autonomy and carry the weight of any other legal court, at least so that we can go and say, that's where we want to go take our din Torah. We wish to go to Bedin. And so he ends off with the following thoughts. Ve'ata, and now, Chavereinu, our friends, Rabbanei Eretz Yisrael v'chul, the rabbis of Israel and the diaspora. Achai v'rai, my brothers and my friends. Simu na libchem ledevarai ele. Listen, please pay attention to my words. Devarim muatim hakolim et hamerubeh. They may be short, but they contain in them much. Hayotzim milev v'nefesh Yehudi homiyah, which are coming out of the soul of a Jew which is yearning. He's playing on words here. What is he playing? What's he quoting here? HaTikvah, right? The Israeli national anthem. He's doing this because he's trying to remind us that he is from those rabbis who supported the state of Israel. He's not from those who didn't believe the state of Israel should exist. And he's reassuring over and over and over again, I am from those people who believe. My heart also was yearning for this modern state of Israel. V'so'eret, my soul is also stormy, as much as it's yearning. Hasmecha b'tkumat Israel be'eretz arisato. I am so happy and joyous at the founding of the state of Israel in the land of our childhood. Hamvarechet birkat shehechiyanu. My soul recites the blessing of shehechiyanu lezman hazeh, who let us live until this time. V'asher yachad im zot. And while my soul is rejoicing over the fact that we have a modern state of Israel, hi doeget v'chareda. My soul is worried, it's trembling. Lemor, and she says, Ma na'aseh la'achotenu. What will we do for our sister? This is a quote from where? Shir HaShirim. Ma na'aseh la'achotenu b'yom sheyidubbar ba. What will we do for our sister on the day that they come for her? Achot lanu ketana v'shadayim ela. Right? We have a young sister. And our sister, who's going to be there for her? Who's the young sister? Zot Toratenu HaKedusha. This young sister of the Jewish people is the Torah. Kakatuv, like it says, Emor lechochma chotiat. Tell wisdom, you are my sister. And look in Sanhedrin on page 5, if you wish to understand that concept more. Bayom shidubar ba, on the day that we come for her. Chishvu, shiklu, ainu, idbonenu, bechol koved harosh. Think about this. Deliberate. Research. Contemplate. With all the seriousness possible. Hitvakhu. Argue with each other. Al peh uvichtav. Verbally, writing, any way you can. Gam me'al amudei ha'tonut, even in the columns of the newspapers. Ve'hayu nechonim layom. Be ready for the day. Asher bo nitasef bezrat Hashem b'Yerushalayim ir kodshenu. When we can gather together in Yerushalayim, our holy city. L'shem diunim ve'achlatot, for deliberations and decisions. V'achakach, and afterwards, yavo al diglechem kol harotzim b'kiyum samchut HaTorah v'kiyum HaTorah bichlal b'Yisrael. And then we'll gather around us all of those who wish to see a more Jewish and Torah observant state of Israel. You have problems with this plan? You don't like it? You have concerns? Talk about it. Be part of the conversation. If we don't communicate with each other, if we don't speak about something, then how are we ever going to solve these problems? Now, sometimes people are afraid. They're afraid of conflict. You know people who are afraid of conflict? There's such a thing. The people they don't know what to do when people argue. I was once learning Torah with my brother, Ariel. I don't know if he's in this phone call today. Now he's a doctor in a hospital. He's busy. But Ariel and I were once learning Torah. We were studying the Rambam. I don't remember exactly what we were studying. And we started fighting with each other. Mamash, we were fighting with each other. And somebody who was working in the synagogue that we were learning at came running, hey, stop, you guys are brothers, you can't fight with each other. And they didn't recognize that there was nothing wrong with us fighting with each other. And that's part of the way that we talk. We were in the middle of talking about something very important, and we were arguing. And just because two people argue doesn't mean that we're not brothers, and it doesn't mean that we don't love each other, and it doesn't mean that we don't care about each other. To the contrary. There was a Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg. You must have heard of him, the author of the Sridei Esh. I once taught a class in the writings of Rabbi Yechiel Yaakov Weinberg on the word tolerance. And he claimed that the word tolerance is a terrible word in the Jewish tradition. Before you jump on him. When I tolerate someone, it means that I don't care about their ideas or their ideology or what they believe. I almost don't even care. I'm entirely ambivalent to what they feel. I just tolerate them. I put up with them. Regardless of what they think, I put up with them. He said, I want to be reckoned with. I don't want you to tolerate me as a Talmid Chacham. I want you not to tolerate me. I want you to fight with me. I want you to discuss with me. Do anything except for tolerate me. Because when you tolerate me, it means you don't actually care about the things that I'm passionate about. I've noticed, and I know that in the world that I'm in right now, this may be not so nice to talk about, but this need to not tolerate. I've noticed some people, I was at a Shabbat table, and I noticed every time a conversation came up, that was a little bit too real. You talked about a topic that was a little too raw for people. All of a sudden, someone starts singing a Shabbat song. They start singing songs. Every single time. I was like, isn't the whole point? We're all gathered together here. We're all sitting around a table. We're all eating food. Isn't it the point that we should all come in now? Let's argue with each other. Can someone give a Devar Torah? All of a sudden, okay, that's the end of your Devar Torah. You're saying too much. Let's keep moving. But Devar Torah has to be boring. It has to be so irrelevant to people's lives. Think about how many people give drashot. They give, the Korban Pesach, if it's offered on a Tuesday, who cares? Who cares? But we talk about things that people can tolerate because we don't want to talk about the things that actually make people worked up. But we do ourselves a disservice. This is an important conversation to have. Says Rabbi Herzog, I don't care if you agree with me or not. I don't care if you're going to agree with each other. But you, the leaders of the Jewish people, must have a conversation. At the very least, you have to be willing to talk about it. And if you disagree, that's fine. But at least it should be at the forefront of our conversation. Until that day that we can come together in Israel, deliberate, and make decisions together. Bisium devarai. At the end of my words, I have to tell you a story. I can't not tell you a story. And really, I should be careful what I say because I don't want to seem that I'm meddling in any business that's not mine. I have a friend, a very dear friend of mine. And you know how apolitical I am as a person. I hope you know already by now. And his friend, my friend's name is Malachi Levinger. Malachi Levinger was the former mayor. Officially, that's not a mayor because it's a Moatzah, but he was the head of the Moatzah, the head of the regional council of Hebron. You may have heard of his father. His father was a very famous, maybe infamous in some circles, figure by the name of Rabbi Moshe Levinger. Was the chief rabbi. Okay, you could Google Rabbi Levinger. You could already discover what you wish to discover about Rabbi Levinger. Malachi Levinger he was here in my community not so long ago. He's running again for the mayor of Hebron. That's what he's running for now. And all of the candidates who are running for the regional council of Hebron, they all went together to the chief rabbi of Hebron. I don't remember his name right now off the top of my head. They are Kiryat Arba officially. They all went to the chief rabbi's home, and they all agreed, orally and in writing, that all of the candidates who are running for office promise not to speak Lashon Hara about each other at all, anywhere, not publicly, not privately, that all of their campaigns are going to be focused entirely on what they bring to the table as politicians and not what the other people can't do as politicians. And they have one picture of all of them holding hands together with the chief rabbi and a proclamation that they put out. And in every single one of their political rallies, it's not such a big place, Kehillat Arba, they bring this up as a reminder that we will not speak poorly of the other team. There was I think it was Utah. There were two people running for office in Utah. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. And like I said, I'm not politically involved. It could be this was all just a show. But they promised that they would run against each other, but not actually against each other. Whoever the other one would win, they would support each other and they would be friends. And the whole time they appeared in all the election ads together. Like crazy people. They're running on completely opposite platforms. But some kind of ability to be able to say, I hate the platform that you stand on. I think that everything that you believe is wrong. But I can recognize that what you're trying to do, in your opinion, is the best thing for this country. That doesn't make you a traitor. It doesn't make you a hater of freedom. It just means that we have two completely different understandings of what the good of this country looks like. Rabbi Herzog is encouraging Talmidei Chachamim, you want to fight. Fighting is good. You know what's not good? Lack of communication. When we don't talk to each other, we exist alone, and we don't have any working relationship with each other, so what can we actually accomplish like that? Nothing. Bisium devarai, as I finish my words, says Rabbi Herzog, Hinni koreh mi'imkei halev, I'm calling out from the depths of my heart. Leman hatzil et hamatzav b'shitchei haShabbat v'chinuch hadati, alongside our desire to fix the Israeli educational system and the status of Shabbat, all who are loyal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to His Torah, it's our obligation. Regardless of where you stand politically, which religious affiliation you have, all of us, hitlakdu, we must unite ourselves and gather together. Lo alman Yisrael, the Jewish people, are not orphans. We're not widows. I think with the power, when he says here Likud, he's not referring to a political party. I'm sure you're aware. He's referring instead to the word Likud, which means to gather together. We will gather together. That if we can all gather together, we can actually become a large block, a voice that must be contended with. And I'm sure that many people will be happy to see what we can accomplish and will support us. It will strike a chord within people, even those who are further, more or less, from actually observing Judaism. Tzav ha'sha'ahu, the time requires us to say, Mil Adonai, who is for Hashem? Yiten yado litachdutahi, b'tzura boletet mamashit. Whoever is really for HaKadosh Baruch Hu should get together in a practical way. Yavo techila rasha miflagot hadatiyot. All of the religious, political parties should gather together. HaMizrahi, HaPoel HaMizrahi, Agudat Yisrael, Poalei Agudat Yisrael. All of them should come together. Lidei heskem hadadi. Make some type of working arrangement, an agreement that they can all get behind. והמה בראשות הגוש הדתי שבמועצת הממשלה יקימו את המנגנון הדרוש לשם הגשמת הצו הגדול. And they all together can work in lobbying the Knesset to bring more Judaism into the state of Israel. You know, it's something fascinating. In Israel, and this is something, it's a note, I'm just noting. In the Israeli Knesset, there are 120 chairs. And as I'm sure you know, it works by creating coalitions. That's how the Israeli government works. It's very different than a system that we have here in the United States of America. And very often, there's one party that doesn't have any kind of majority in the Knesset, so they work together, promise these people those things, those people those. Everyone needs what they promise, and usually it's a lot of money and a lot of corruption, and they get together some kind of coalition, and there's an opposition, and there's a coalition, and that's how the government works. Every once in a while, the Israeli government tries to get rid of the smaller political parties. They're a thorn in their side. And so what they do is they raise the minimum threshold of votes that a party needs to get a chair in the Knesset. They've done this strategically in the past to outlaw certain political parties they didn't want, or to just get them not on the ballot. If you've ever seen the Israeli elections, you have the few major political parties, then some of the minor ones, and then you have a list of like 3 or 4 pages of dozens and dozens of political parties that they never made it into the Knesset, but they just took a lot of votes with them. Every time they try to raise the minimum threshold, 2 populations have a problem. The Arab political parties have a problem because it's a very small population they're representing in terms of the larger picture of things. And the other group of people who always have a problem maintaining the minimum threshold, the religious political parties. Always. Always, always. If it's Agudat Israel, if it's, and they change their name, Bayit HaYehudi, Mafdal, whatever they call themselves, Shas, all of these parties, they have a few other ones.
Both have the same problem.
Both have the same problem.
If they're small, they need to get united.
Very good. Now the Arabs...
On a mutual basis, not on a...
Right. Now, the main way to not get disqualified is that all of them would agree to run together as a party. And then once they get voted in, they can each take care of their own agendas separately. The Arabs have managed already a few times to join together. You're talking about people that are politically polar opposites from each other. They've managed to run under one ticket and get into the Knesset. To date, you're going on 75 years of the State of Israel. We have not managed to get any of the religious political parties in the State of Israel to sit together and agree on anything. They're not willing to run under the same umbrella no matter what. It doesn't matter. Rabbi Herzog has this vision that if the religious parties could put together some kind of document of agreement, let's just work together on the things we can agree about. We won't work together on the things we can't agree about. Then we can cause the Jewish people to get behind us and affect change in the State of Israel. Sometimes I'm not sure, because if our cousins, the Arabs, were able to do something and the religious Jews couldn't do it, I don't know what else is going to motivate them to get their act together. Vata, and now, Ani tefillah l'atzachat medinat Yisrael. I am praying for the success of the State of Israel. Don't perceive me, the chief rabbi, somebody who wants to see more religion in the State of Israel, as being an enemy of the State of Israel. I'm not an enemy of the State of Israel. I'm praying for the success of the State of Israel. Ani tefillah l'shlom tzva Yisrael. I'm praying for the peace of the army of Israel. Hamekachim Shem Yisrael, who sanctify the name of Israel. Umimela Shem HaShamayim, and because they sanctify the name of Israel, they also sanctify the name of God. Berucham Kabir, with their tremendous spirit. Bigvuratam HaMoftit, with their miraculous courage. Yishmerem Shomer Yisrael, V'ateret Nitzachon Yachtirem. May the guardian of Israel protect them, and may he crown them with a crown of victory. Ani tefillah lenoten HaTorah. I pray to the giver of the Torah. Habucher b'Tzion, who chose in Zion. La'ashiv lev banim el avotam, to return the Jewish people to the heart of their father. V'elchek imam, and to the arms of their mother. Who's the father of the Jewish people?
Abraham.
Okay, that's good. That's the biological father. When we say Avinu Shabashamayim, who are we talking about?
Hashem.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Very good. Who's our mother?
It's depending what Rachel could be.
So he says here, Ayin Yerushalmi, Sof Masechet Berachot.
Knesset Israel.
No, Knesset Israel is us. We are Knesset Israel.
The land of Israel.
Okay, I'll take that as a guess. What did you say, Yitzchak?
Devorah.
Devorah. Okay, we're talking about people. I'm going to read to you. He tells us to look in Talmud Yerushalmi, so I made a copy here for you. I'm reading to you from the end of Talmud Yerushalmi, in Masechet Berachot. He says the following. Al tavuz ki zakna imecha. In Mishlei, it says, don't, tavuz, it's a verb of, okay, don't be denigrating because your mother got old. Amar Rabbi Yosef Barbun, Rabbi Yosef bar Rabun says, Im nityashnu divrei Torah beficha, al tevazeh alehen. If the words of the Torah become old in your mouth, don't disrespect them. Who's our mother who got old?
Torah.
The Torah.
Torah.
The Torah is our mother. Al titosh Torat imecha. Ma te'ama al tavuz ki zakna imecha. What does it mean you shouldn't disrespect her or denigrate her? Amar Rabbi Zeira. Rabbi Zeira said, Im nizdakna umatecha. If you see that your nation is getting too old, amod vegodra. Get up and fix it. Kashem she'asa Elkanah, just like Elkanah did, Shay madrich et Yisrael lefa'ameh regalim. That he instructed the Jewish people, he helped them make pilgrimage for the holidays. Like it says, Ahu dichtiv, like it says in Shemuel, Ve'ala ha'ish ahu mi'iro. That man came up from his city, from his town. Tell me what the story of Elkanah was. What did Elkanah do?
The leader, every year to come with his family.
Right.
Shiloh.
So he made a point. When he saw the Jews weren't going, he made a point of encouraging everyone to go with him. So this second interpretation of what is our mother is our nation. Imecha umatecha. But the first one, the first reading here in the Tamar Rabbi Yosef Abun, if the Torah feels irrelevant to you, there's some commentaries that say if the Torah has become you're so used to the Torah that it becomes old for you. Fine, I'm not going down that interpretation. If you see the Torah being old, don't abandon her. What kind of a person abandons his mother in her old age? There's a famous politician. Famous. He's a Tamil Chacham. They say he's Tamil Chacham. I saw his father collecting money. Like a poor person in the street. Doesn't take care of his father. I don't know the story. I don't know the politics. I'm not involved there. All I can say is you don't want the Torah of the Jewish people to feel that way. We have a Torah. We have this magnificent heritage. We have a beautiful legal tradition, but we abandon it because it seems irrelevant to us. If it seems irrelevant, so get up and fix it. Do something about it. So when he says, I want to see the Jewish people return to the arms of their mother, to the Torah, Vi ratzon milfnei Avinu shebashamayim, it should be in the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our Father in heaven. Shenizkeh bimhera lismoach bYerushalayim habenuya, that we should merit to celebrate and to rebuild Jerusalem. Uvegeulat Yisrael hashelema, and we should merit to see the complete redemption of the Jewish people. Uveharamat keren Toratenu hakedosha vekeren Yisrael gam yachad, that we should see the Jewish people's dignity and also that of the Torah together rise. Bimhera, very quickly, bekarov, very soon. Amen v'amen. May it happen very soon. And so for here, Rav Herzog left us off with a vision, a plan. He's bothered by a problem. And if last week he felt a little bit like a dreamer, and we left off the class last week saying, who did he think he was talking to? Like, which kind of people would make a religious state of Israel? He seems bewildered. He was bewildered by us, not by other people. How could it be that this topic is not at the forefront of the Jewish conversation? How have we become so okay with a state of Israel that is Jewish, but not actually Jewish? How is it that it's already normal for us to assume there never will be a Sanhedrin, we never will have religious courts of law, our Talmidei Chachamim will never guide us on the path of the Torah? How can we become so ambivalent and numb to something that should be burning in our hearts? And he suggested a few things. Have this conversation. Create the next generation of leadership. Create the literature that is needed to empower even those judges that are not actually rabbis or chachamim to be able to incorporate more of this law into their life. Demand autonomy, at least for individual citizens, to go to Jewish courts of law. And lastly, don't stop talking about it. There's something you can learn from everybody. Our chachamim say you can learn from everyone. Ezu chacham halomen mikol adam. Who is wise? One who learns from everybody. I once had the displeasure of visiting the Jews for Jesus website. Happens. And as I was looking through their mission statement, the Jews for Jesus organization says that I don't know, I haven't been there for a long time, but they said that at least then, that their mission in life is to make the messiahship of Yeshu An unavoidable issue for their Jewish brothers and sisters around the world. An unavoidable issue. It's our job also. Not to their plan. We'll avoid it as much as we can. But our plan? To make the Torah an unavoidable issue for Jewish people around the world. Why do we have to be afraid of that? What are we embarrassed of? We're afraid of the Torah that we see people present. It's not sophisticated enough. It's crazy. It's superstitious. It's dangerous. I agree with you. Which is why we have to be leading the conversation and not allowing other people to lead the conversation for us. The reason we have this Beit Midrash is because we're done with other people thinking for us. We want to be able to think for ourselves. We wish to provide an alternative to other people who maybe left the Torah. They left the arms of their mother because they thought that she was outdated. They thought that she had nothing to offer them. Imagine if we were able, v'heshiv levavot al banim v'lev banim al avotam, that we could bring back the children and the parents together on that day that Eliyahu HaNavi comes, that our prophet tells us that everybody will be united. Imagine if we brought about that reunification between this Jewish family and the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I got an email today from somebody who listens to these classes. And I was so moved by it. I share it to give you credit. It's not about me, it's about you. This person said, Rabbi, I have to tell you that I've been listening to these shiurim, and I moved away. He used the word, they say in the religious community, off the derech. I went off the derech when I was a young man because I saw that there was nothing relevant in the Torah. Nothing. He said, I've been listening to these classes on YouTube, and it's completely changed my perspective on Torah. And I find myself moving closer, and I just wanted to thank the people in your Beit Midrash for that. And so here's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, every one of you here, thank you. Thank you for creating what we have created together. I'm moved beyond words that we've been able to get this far. 17, Baruch Hashem, Yud Zayin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to a good place. The next one is Chai. HaKadosh will give us a long life and good health. And this week on Friday night, I'm going to be sitting here. If you want to join me, you're also invited to join me. We're going to be sitting here in the Beit HaKnesset singing Achot Ketana. In the Sephardic community, this is the piyut that opens up the tefillah. Different communities have different tunes. In our community, Achot Ketana Tefilotea. The young sister of God, that's us, we're the Jewish people. And we end off every verse. Tichle Shana Vekilelotea. May this year and all of her curses end. And as we finish the entire piyut, everyone joins together and they say one last line, and they say, Tachel Shana Uvirchoteha. May this year and all of her blessings begin. And so I bless us all of us, in our personal lives, in our communal lives, in our national life as a Jewish people, and all of the people in the world that are hurting, that are struggling, that are suffering. We've seen in this last year some pretty terrible things that happened. I'm just thinking in recent history, I'm thinking about earthquakes in Turkey and fires in Maui and another earthquake in Morocco, and I'm thinking about things that are happening to people all over the world. Our Jewish brothers and sisters that were murdered right and left this year in Eretz Israel. There's so much in our national life, but also in our personal lives. The curses that need to end. We just want them to be done already. And so I'm blessing us all. Tachel Shana Uvirchoteha. May this year and all of her blessings begin. But first, may last year and all of her curses end. And may this year usher into us a whole new era, a whole new world. And B'ezrat Hashem, I look forward to meeting you on the other side. K'tiva v'chatima tova. May you be written and may you be sealed in a book of health and good life. And for us, all of Israel, and for the whole world. B'ezrat Hashem yitbarach.